This is our wide belt sander. Now the wide belt sander is 36 inches wide. The planer was only 24. This one is a foot wider. So you can do much wider pieces in here or multiple pieces. Like the planer, it makes your wood a little bit thinner, except instead of using a blade, it uses a wide belt of sandpaper that just spins round and round in the drum up here. Let me go through some of the parts. Now, at first glance, there's a lot of buttons and knobs and adjustments that you can make, so let's talk about some of them. This, of course, is the bed, where you're going to lay your pieces of wood and it'll suck it through the machine and sand off the top. Some of the other things, to turn on the machine, the first thing we have to do is turn on air pressure. What that does is there's a drum here and a drum here that go across the machine, and it tightens the drums. So the belt, the sandpaper belt, is tight. You can't have it loose, it's gonna flop around and tear. So to turn on air pressure, that's right here. You follow this hose all the way to the base and you have a yellow handle. By turning it vertical, up or down, you hear the air pressure turn on. When I put it horizontal, the air pressure turns off and you can hear it kind of ease back down again. So when I turned it on, the belts did that. That's what you hear. Some of the other things, down here on the bottom, there's a manual wheel that you can turn to raise and lower this table. However, this is a digital machine, so we'll be doing it with the arrows here, which I'll show you in a moment. But if anything gets stuck and we have to shut down the machine to raise and lower it, it's down here at the bottom. We'll just turn the handle left or right and get that piece out of there. Here is the compression knob. This is very important for the setup of the machine. Now, one of the really nice things about this type of wide belt sander is it sets its own depth. So I'll show you how to set it up, but this is the knob. You can see it looks almost like a handle, a knob that you'd put on a drawer front. And it compresses as you raise the table on a board, and it will know how thick it is, so it will set itself. This is the control panel for the machine. So let me go through some of the buttons here. On are, of course, the green buttons. This turns on the belt, so it wraps around all the belts. It's just showing you that that's what it's for. This one turns on the bed, where we set the wood and it runs through. Doesn't matter what order you turn these on in, you can turn them both on. When you turn it on, a green light appears and it's running. These are the off switches for both. So hit them in any order again, just turn them both off when you're done. This is an emergency stop. Now when I hit this, if it's running, of course, then a brake will come down and clamp onto the drums and it will stop it instantly. This is for emergencies only. This is not your normal stop. These are your coast down stops. This is your emergency stop. The more often I use this, the more worn out that brake is going to become. And so use these unless it is an emergency. Here are all the buttons and dials. There's a lot of numbers here. The ones we use most are just simply up and down. They look like triangles. This one will go up. Now remember, I can put in numbers here all day, but I won't be able to do anything unless the air is on. So the first step to running this machine is turn on the air pressure. So I can press up or press down. It's not going to do anything. So if it isn't working, turn on the air pressure. This is simply your dial for how many amps are going through the machine. If you're overloading the machine, it will go very high. But for the moment, it hovers somewhere around 20 to 25 amps, and that's normal. I turned on the air pressure. You can hear it kind of hissing in the background. So here is how it actually works. When I push the up arrow, it raises the table. When I push down arrow, it goes down. That's pretty simple. However, if I want it to go up a certain amount, you tap. By tapping an arrow, it will raise or lower 5/1000ths of an inch. So then I run the board through at say 0.8, run it through, tap, it raises the table 5/1000ths. Now it's 795, and I run it through again. And I continue to do that until it's sanded to whatever thickness I'm going for. If I want to take off more than 5/1000ths, say I want to do 2 taps, so that's 10/1000ths, then I can tap twice in succession. 1, 2. And it was at 795, it'll be at 785. And now I've done 2 times raising it. Now here's where the problems happen, is when you hold the button for too long. So I'm now at, let me go back down to 0.8. There we go. If I want to tap twice and put it to 790, I would tap quickly. If if I accidentally tap and hold it for just a moment and then let go and think that that's it, instead of 790, I'm at 765, which is about 3 times more than I want it to go. So you need to be very careful. This is when you overload the machine. Students will hold and they go, I think that's right, I only tapped it once. But if you hold it too long, it goes much higher than it's supposed to, and then you overload the machine. Now, how do you know if you've gone too far? You will hear the machine screech very loud, a loud screeching sound, which I'm not going to demonstrate. So be very careful that as you're doing this dial, if you want to go up 2 or 3, 1, 2, 3, I've now done 15 thousandths. You're tapping and letting go, tapping and letting go. Now let's run a board through the wide belt sander and go through the whole process. Now remember, if you forget any of the steps, they're all written right here, and I'm going to just verbally go through each one of them. First step, of course, is turn on the air. Now you can hear it hissing in the background, so it's already on. We're ready to move the table. Next step, lower the table to about 1 inch. If you're a little over, a little under, that's fine, but that usually opens enough for a single board. Lay your board on the table so it stays flat. If you're here and it's up and down, it may alter your measurement. Put it in between the compression knob right there. Just let it sit, and then press and hold the up arrow. Now I'm just holding it, and I'm still holding it, but the machine will stop itself. It's telling me this particular board is 0.935, and whatever yours is, it's now set. Now, we're going to run it through the machine a couple of times, but before we do, I tend to find the best way to make sure that the sander actually sands everything. Take a pencil and just draw some lines. When those lines are gone, you know you've sanded and you're done. Also, make sure you always put on your safety glasses for the machine before you turn anything on. Any order, everything's on, run it through. Now, as you can see, there's just a little bit of my line left, but it did hit the middle. I'm going to flip it, raise the table, do it again. Because the board is so small, I can do 2 taps, but that is up to you. I'll go 1, 2, quick. Sometimes you'll only do 1, just depends. Run through the other side. Remember to always go with the grain. You've got to go with the grain, never across. You'll get a much better finish. There's the other side. We have a little left, and I would continue this process, raising it up 1 or 2 and running it through until both sides are smooth. Another really nice feature on this machine is, like the planer, I can put multiple boards through at the same time and it'll do them all. So I've even got a wider bed. Remember though, the more pieces you put, the more of this bed you're using, the less you want to sand off. So generally we would do 5 to 10 thousandths. If it's a really long or wide piece of wood like the top of a desk or something like that, I may only tap 1 time each pass. It just has to be able to handle it. But with a couple of these, smaller pieces, you could do 2 and maybe even 3, but usually it's 5 to 10 thousandths. The most common injury on this machine is certainly not kids putting their hands inside. It's putting the board in. Again, it's going to slam this down on the table and squeeze it. Now this table is not smooth metal, it's actually a rubberized belt, so it kind of grabs the wood. Now if my fingers are underneath, when I do that, it's going to grab my fingers very hard, and it's very difficult to pull your hands out, and it does hurt. Should that happen, there is also an emergency brake right here in the front. You can see push, emergency, stop, push, it's right here in red. If my hands are stuck, it's there in the front so I can hit it with my leg. And that does exactly the same thing as the emergency brake on the control panel. So make sure, first of all, not to accidentally bump into it. But second, if there is anything that gets stuck in there, it's right here in front across the entire machine.